what did you find were the challenges to being a female scientist? So if I could ask that first of all to Nazlah, please.
Thank you, Gareth. I think in any field, there's still barriers, especially for women, because women always have difficulty, and then we always been treated unfairly, mostly by culture and society. So in addition to this, because of the gender also, we will face the inability to balance between work and family. There will be discrimination, and then there will be lack of support because of this discrimination also, and then the life partner. Maybe sometimes there will be some discrimination in our family. Okay, but we need to overcome all these changes by facing it, to address it, identify the barrier, the obstacles, and then try to just face it. Okay, so by balancing the work and family, we need a proper schedule in every day, monthly, and yearly. So to have success, to become a female scientist, then we need to divide our daily routine, monthly routine, and yearly routine accordingly, so that we will have balance in career, times for family and husband. Let's say that one day, daylight for work, nighttime for family, weekdays for work, and weekends for family. And then once a while in a year, we need a holiday to be with our own family. And then about the partner of life, if there's discrimination between both of you, then you need to face it. If he didn't agree, just leave him alone and then go for it. Okay, so yeah, that's what I did during my PhD. I leave my husband in Malaysia. I went to UK so that I will focus on my PhD, and then came back to work. Also because as a scientist, comparing to the medical doctor, I can separate I can choose to be busy and spending time with family accordingly. Not because the medical doctor is quite because the medical doctor needs to be on call. So comparing to these female scientists, I can choose whether to be day in work, or can extend my up to early nighttime for the scientist work. That's all. I think after all, we need to balance the life and avoid face the discrimination by limiting or scheduling our daily life and monthly life.
Thank you, Nazlah.
Yeah.
Sue, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good question, because as Nazlah says, there are still some challenges, that we have to overcome. And the great thing is that things have got so much better than where they were. So I'll actually put a link into some YouTube videos that were from females in science, and one of my role models from when I was younger, she said that when she said she wanted to have, or she was pregnant, she was told, well, forget having a career in science. It's not possible to have children and have a career in science. And things have really changed, because you're looking at 3 scientists here. We have children and we've made it work. And that's what's really important. I think things are really changing. And actually being a female scientist now is one of the most exciting times to be a female scientist, because we really are empowering each other. And it's a great feeling. I think teamwork is the most important thing to overcome those challenges. Working as a team, celebrating success, laughing at frustrations, and also sharing the way in which you cope. So the coping mechanisms. So the challenges are there, and I think like Nazlah, I would say my biggest challenge was trying to balance that work and my time with my children. And I actually worked part-time for a number of years, and it's certainly not held me back as a scientist. But you then, as Nazlah says, you be flexible, you be really organised, and it really works. But I would say the most important thing, science is about teamwork, and actually overcoming the challenges is all about teamwork and having a really strong group of scientists around you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And Nurha, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, so I agree with Sue and Nazlah. So talking about challenges, so I would like to also to answer a question from Ashley that asked about what part do you struggle the most when you work as a dental scientist. So I will talk about a different aspects. So Nazlah and Sue talk different aspects. So so my challenges is actually during my first year coming back from my PhD. So at that time, we need to have a class, anatomy class, and then at the same time you need to have your research. You need to apply the grant. So because it's your first year came back to work, so you put a lot of effort, okay, on your teaching. So you need to prepare the materials, all those things, all the books, and then I left a bit behind for my research part. And then actually we need to have both fair. Teaching and research need to be equal. But during my first year, I'm left a bit on my research part, and then a lot on my learning teaching part. But when you come to your second year, and then when you have all the materials with you, and then after that you catch up again with your research. So at that time you already have all the materials for teaching, so you just need to update a few things on your lectures, and then you can catch up again with your research to apply grant to get a student, and that's on, because we need to have both. Yeah, that's all.
Great, thank you very much, Nurha. So next, can I go to our third question? So this is to you, please, Jessica. Did you have a role model that influenced your decision to work in science?
This is actually a very interesting question, because if you ask me, the first instantaneous response is no. But actually, if I think more carefully about this, then yes, because as I said, when I was a kid, I like basically breaking things apart, and then at one time, I think being a Chinese, I think seeing scientists in a mostly dominated by, I think, Western, European and American people, seeing a Chinese scientist was actually very rare events at that time. And I remember one particular person is called David Ho. So he is one of the guru in looking at the HIV and deciphering what is the genetic component of HIV as a virus about 20 years ago. That is the technology, which will take 3 days now, but it was taking 3 years actually to sequence the whole HIV sequence, and then finding the cocktail therapy of treating, or at least delaying, the pathology development of HIV AIDS patients. And that was actually quite a stimulating person to me. I was thinking that how can a Chinese actually work in a elite American universities and able to actually deliver such a grand program. And I think that actually drives me to work towards science, and also looking at the resilience that he was actually having in overcoming all the difficulties, prejudice and challenges that he faced in that society. I think one matter I learned is, no matter what comes towards you, to your way, just take it as it is. I think everybody has different difficulties, but if you are only focusing on your difficulties, you will never be able to overcome it. So you need to think about it in a broader sense, and just take it as it is, one by one, and then you will get over it. That is what I think.
Great, thank you, Jessica. Next question is to you, Sue, and it's from Yumin Angela Lee. Angela asks, is there something you would recommend us to do in this current stage of education? And do you have any tips when we study biology and chemistry?
Okay, that's a really good question, actually. I think there are a lot of things that you can do. One problem that a lot of people have when they're thinking about biology and chemistry is it's really hard. It's really hard to understand. How do we just take all of this information and assimilate it, understand what we need to do with it? And what I would say, the most important thing you can do is talk to each other. So talking about science in peer groups as well as with your teachers is absolutely critical. Ask questions, never stop asking questions, and also don't be afraid to challenge. So if you feel that something's not quite right or that you're being told something, ask them why they've given you that information. And we have so much information now at our fingertips with really good, so go to very reputable websites. There are some really good websites from different charities, different universities. There's a lot of information that you can do to supplement your study of biology and chemistry. You don't have to rely just on a teacher. A teacher will just help you to understand. They'll give you the basics, and then you're building on that. So it's really up to you. And in terms of this current stage of education, this is where the fun can start. So you can start a club, for example. You can start a club after school, or with your peers, talking about science, whatever science really interests you. Some really cool neuroscience talks. Asks local scientists within the universities or within companies whether you can either come into the lab to look around, or we've had school children, it's not so possible during the pandemic, but coming in to do lab experience. So that's something that I was thinking about. And if you can't get into a lab, actually ask a scientist. A lot of data now are available as an open access source. You could actually try analysing that data yourself and going, okay, so let's have a look at the data. Let's see what people have done in the past. And actually that gives you an idea of how you can play with information and get different answers out of it. I would also suggest that you listen to, there are some fantastic TED Talks on science, and there are some fantastic, as I said, I'll put a link in to some YouTube videos, talks on science. The very last thing I would suggest is that you actually think about writing your own blog and talking, bringing science down to a different level. So if you can explain science, either at the level an academic, which is what we spend a lot of our time doing, or talking to other people. So perhaps, talk to your younger siblings, talk to people around you, talk to your friends who aren't interested in science, and see if you can, really inspire them to enjoy science. But doing a blog means that you're communicating quite difficult, complex things at a level that people can understand. So really think about your science. So those are some suggestions. I hope that they've been helpful.
Great, thank you, Sue. And presumably, with your role within Leeds University, if somebody has been interviewed to come to Leeds University, those sort of things that you've described would look really good, wouldn't they, on their CV in an interview?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's just showing that you're doing some extra information. I think, Jessica, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, no, I just want to say that science is actually happening around our environments all the time. So if you pay attention to that, a lot of things are actually fun. So giving you one example here as a biologist, I don't know whether you have learned it in school already. So we have a technique called Western blots, which you will actually put some protein on, run a protein in a gel, put it in a paper, and then look at what protein is on it. And during that procedure, we would need to block some of the non-specific sites, we call it. And then I always have difficulties explaining to students what is that step. And then I was telling them that if you take your coffee mug, and then if you're drinking tea or coffee without any milk in there, you normally see this brown layer covering your mug. But if you put a little bit of milk in there, and then all the brown staining will be gone, basically. You will have much less the brown staining on the mug. And that is basically what exactly we're doing in science. And that is what I want to really use to illustrate the different science principle actually happening around us. Why are we cooking eggs in 10 minutes, for example? I mean, the different things. Why would egg white actually turn from liquid to a solid egg, for example? All these things are quite interesting. So as soon as you start discussing it with people, then you realize that's how fun it is actually happening around us.
Right, thanks, Jessica. Actually, Jessica, the next question is coming to you as well. It's a kind of second part, really, from a question from Angela about what happens after school. So after graduating from our universities, what would be the next processes to getting a career as a biochemistry scientist?
Okay, so I think biochemistry is quite a funny topic in the sense that once you study biochemistry, it actually opens the door for a lot of different biomedical disciplines. So you can go to biomedical sciences, you can go to pharmacology to a certain extent, you can go to dentistry, you can go to medicine, for example. So it really opens up a lot of the doors. But on the other hand, it is quite a nerdy topic, so you really need to like it. You really need to look at something that you don't see. So I remember again the first student practicals that we have in the biochemistry lecture. You're isolating DNA and you're looking at this little vial, transparent, and you didn't see anything in there. In our eyes, I mean, my eyes are quite good, yeah, but actually I don't see anything in there. And my lecturer was telling me that you just need to believe that it is in there. And then you dissolve something, dissolve the invisible thing in there with some water, and you run it in the gel, and you realize that, oh yes, the DNA is there. So you need to believe in something that you don't see, because they are mostly with molecules and so small that you don't see them. But if you like that part, and I think this is actually a very good subject, the first path that you need to do is to do a postgraduate degree in that, to develop your skill in the topic. And once you have developed that skill, it gives you a lot of opportunities to different areas.
Right, thank you, Jessica. Nurha, did you want to come in on that one as well?
Yeah, I agree with Jessica, because in my school, the School of Dental Sciences, we also have biochemists with us, because in research we also have a teamwork. So we combine with the clinical physician with basic science also. All of us work together to have quite a very good research. And actually in Malaysia, here after you graduating, so you need to have your Master of Science first, and then after that you can pursue your PhD in biochemist. Or if you have quite a very good, in Master of Science, if you in certain university they apply this, if you do the master program, if you have like your project can be extended to PhD, so we can propose your MSc project to be extended to the PhD. If not, you need to finish your MSc first, Master of Science first, and then PhD. So what I'm did before, I'm doing my master first, and then I'm doing my PhD later. Yeah.
Thank you, Nurha. Yeah. Actually, Sue, you alluded to this earlier, and there's a specific question here about managing both career and private life. So is it hard to manage career and private life, and how do you manage both? So Nazlah, can I ask you to start on this one, please?
Sorry, can I?
Sorry, I'll repeat the question. Sorry. Is it hard to manage both career and private life, and how do you manage both?
Because nowadays I'm working as a medical lecturer, and we usually had teaching classes, teaching undergraduates and postgraduates, and most of the time the classes are in the morning schedule. So I started to wake up early to prepare my kids first, send my son to his school, and be in my office at 8 a.m. So I've traveled starting at 7 a.m. in the morning. So I reached my office at 7:30, and then I started the classes until later in the afternoon. And then if I have free time, I went to lab to supervise my master and PhD students, and then continue if any other jobs such as meeting or discussion, and back from the office at 5 p.m. And then finish the work of academicians there, need to prepare dinner for family, and either cook or buy something from from the way back. And then if I have free time, do some exercise, go to a university park to jog there, or because of the COVID situation now, most of the time my work, I can choose to be in working from home or to be in office because there's a few criteria we need to supervise in school, so we need to be there. So most of the time during this COVID situation, I prefer to be home. So it's almost the same during my PhD time because I brought my son to UK, so it's almost the same. PhD and working life is almost the same, and the routine there here and there quite similar. And most of the time, I'm juggling with the same activities. Work and study pressure are almost the same, and we need to face it. Just schedule it nicely. Right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next question actually has come in recently, and it's from British International School in Phuket. So they'd like to know, what does your average day look like? Now, I'd say, actually, Nazlah, you've just made mention of that in your answer for the last question. So can I put that to you to start with, please, Sue?
The great thing about science is I don't think there is an average day. So one day you'll come in and there'll be a lot of teaching to do, and you might be delivering a lecture to 250 people, and then you're going into a small tutorial where you're actually muting. Where you're actually delivering a tutorial to maybe 10 people, and then you may then be going into doing some meetings with people and looking at your research. So you're going and looking at microscopes and seeing some fantastic data on the microscope, or you're looking down looking at neurons firing action potentials. So you never really have an average day. It's really exciting. That's what I love about it. The fact that you're aware that there are so many things that are likely to happen in one day. You may be having meetings with somebody in Malaysia one day, or Germany the next day, or New Zealand the next day. And, you know, I think we're so lucky, because I would never say that I've been bored in my scientific career. I don't know who wants to go next.
Sue, I think the COVID pandemic has meant that you've not been travelling quite so much. I know you usually travel around the world a lot, don't you?
I do. So the 2020, I think I was coming to Malaysia. I was going to give a talk in Budapest, a talk in Frankfurt. So yeah, it's a strange time, and I know Jessica has some really strong links with the Czech Republic, don't you? So do you want to talk about that, Jessica, perhaps?
Yeah, so I think, the pre-COVID time and post-COVID, no, I wouldn't say post-COVID, or we are still in the middle of it. It's very different from the usual time. I may touch a little bit on the pre-COVID time first. And so I try to make my life a little bit more routine, in the sense that I know that as soon as I go out of the building, I'm not thinking about the work part. I might work late in the building, so it can be 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, but I know that once I'm out, I'm out. But with the COVID situation, I can't, because a lot of us are actually working from home. You basically have this mixture of work and private life at home as well. So I think developing your own routine is quite important. But at the same time, I also completely agree with what Sue said. I think what we call routine is not exactly a routine, because it is so diverse in terms of our job nature. I try to use the first 2 hours and the last 2 hours of my day doing something more personal, in a sense that I will be answering emails, which doesn't involve any interaction with people, but still the core of the day is basically interacting with students, teaching, collaborators, talking with people who I would usually actually fly over to their own country, and that's it, sitting in the same room and discussing about projects. And nowadays it's basically over Teams, Zoom, whatever online platform. So I think I do my routine by the hours, and once it's there, the clock is there, then I'm done, basically. I will try to keep my Saturday, Sunday at least some entertainment. I think having a balanced life is quite important. The some entertainment can be just 2 hours of going out for a walk, or I recently start picking up paintings, as you can see one picture here. But anyway, so I think having this balanced life, I think I'm still emphasizing on that, and that will be important in this case. Yeah.
Right. And Nurha, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, okay, about average day of life. Yeah. So it's really different from pre-pandemic and to now, because using before COVID, so we need to, in the morning we need to send son to school, go back to office, and then fetch them at the evening. So it's like a very daily routine. And of course, sometimes because me, I'm working on deadline, so I will arrange my work according to deadline, which one we need to do first, and then it's normal for me to bring my works home. And then sometimes I work during late night, so that's need to be done to finish our work, because we usually work on deadline. Okay, and then but during the pandemic time, so at this time we were allowed to, so even till now we are allowed to work from home, because our kids also at home. Schooling from home. So I think the routine also different. I mean, when you work from home, it's look like you work until morning to night. I don't know. It's how I feel. Okay, and then yeah, I think, and then because even we can work from home, we still can go to the office. So when you feel like working from home is like, you know, when you're always at the same place working, so you feel like I want to go out to go to office, so I'll go to the office. And then when you feel like, okay, I want to work from home, so I work to. So the flexibility is there. So I think, yeah, if we can continue this culture of working, I think, yeah, it's better. Yeah.
Great, thank you. There's questions come in that I think is quite a nice one following on from that. Is, do you have any hobbies that might not be directly related to science? Who'd like to say that one?
Well, I mentioned something about, sorry.
Yeah, go, Jess. Yeah, go.
I mentioned something about my painting already, but I think I'm a person who cannot actually fix on one thing all the time. So the painting part is recently, I have to say, I only recently picked up about like a year ago. Before that, I was doing model making. So something I think it's always using my fingers in a way, but it is also taking my mind off from the science part. Even though sometimes, I mean, for the painting, I do integrate the two things, but for making models, then no, I wouldn't say so. I think generally for me, it is every 3 years I will have a change of my hobby. So so quite diverse in a way, but I think it is good to keep my mind active in a way as well.
Great. Sue, what are your hobbies outside of science?
Well, so I think we come across as nerdy scientists, but actually in a good way, because I have to say that my hobby is probably being outside, either walking, or I do something called British military fitness, which is running up and down hills and doing burpees, which sounds like a nightmare, but actually, keeping fit and exercising really clears your mind. You can talk as you're doing it, and exercise is so good for your brain and so good for your body that actually I spend a lot of time, and this does make me a nerd, but thinking about, as I'm running, the pacing and let's think about what's going on in my spinal cord and my pacemaker activity. Am I doing this? Am I doing that? So it's really interesting. But yeah, so I think exercise is one thing that I would say, and it boosts my brain. Keeps me young.
Thank you for that, Sue. So next time I go out running, I'm going to be thinking about what's happening with my spinal cord and not focusing on the music that I'm listening to. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
That's about right.
Could I, Nazlah, do you have a hobby outside of science?
Yeah, my hobby actually drawing. Yeah, I'm actually I've won a few contests in drawing during my childhood days, but then the hobby stopped during that time because I need to focus to study during my schools. And maybe before went to UK, I did some drawing and painting in my house, and I also love baking. Yeah. Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
different from science.
And Nurha, what's your hobby outside of science?
Oh, my hobby, yeah. I'm thinking, what's my hobby? I can say that watching television. I don't know, but sometimes I do. I mean, exercise in the evening time. Even watching television can boost my brain, like so. Thinking.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm doing exercise. I mean, just walking, just running or walking on treadmill. Yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you. There are a number of questions come in about discrimination and gender disparity, and so I want to touch on some of those next, if I may. So, first of all, why is there discrimination towards females in science? Who'd like to take that one first? Jessica, can we go to you, please?
Yeah, so I actually want to raise a counter argument. Is it only a discrimination against female scientists? So I think if you take everything, no, if you take something as discrimination, yeah, if you have that in your mind all the time, you're always thinking that something is going against your way. Taking myself as an example, so I'm a Chinese in a Western environment. I'm a female in a male-dominated environment, for example. I mean, biology is not the case, but in science in general is. So if I'm taking this all the time saying that, okay, so if I have this mistreatment, which I'm not feeling happy or pleasant, then I think people are mistreating me, then I'm only going to put myself in a miserable situation every single day. I would rather say, is that target? I'll look at the question as whether it is targeting me or not, or is it just happened to me today? It might happen to Sue tomorrow. It might happen to Gareth in the other day as well. So it is not just me. I think a lot of the situation we're only focusing on ourselves, but it is not the case. I think it is like the first question I answer. I take every single challenge or every single unpleasant situation by itself, but not linking them together, because otherwise you're only going to mistreat yourself. It's not other people mistreating you, but you mistreating yourself, I think.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else want to jump in on that one?
Nazlah or Nurha?
Because naturally discriminated because of the presence of superior and inferior, and like male and female. But I think there will be no discrimination between male and female if women can think better than males. So be better for women. Okay?
Right.
I think
oh, sorry, go on, Sue.
No, go on, Nurha, you go next. Or shall I go? Okay, I'll go. Yeah, I agree. I think it's really important that actually, you know, that I think there used to be more discrimination, but I think women are really empowering themselves. And as Jessica says, it's not just about, you know, discrimination against females or anything. I think, as you say, if you put barriers there, then you feel you have to overcome them. But actually, as scientists, I think we're breaking down those barriers, and there's less and less discrimination, and that's what's so brilliant. And actually, most societies and most universities, we have equality, diversity, and inclusion committees. We have ways to ensure that people do feel included. And so I would say that we're less likely to be treated differently because we've got a voice, and actually as scientists we all use that voice, and therefore it doesn't happen as much, and that's a great thing. So I think things have really moved forward, and so in the past probably discrimination, and yes, there'll be discrimination in everything, but I think we as females really we can overcome those.
Right. Nurha, do you have anything you want to add to that? Or you muted?
You're mute.
Yeah, I think if we can express ourselves, I mean, very well. I mean, our thought very well, express our. I mean, yeah, very well. I think we able to move forward with our other colleagues. Yeah, because we also see that there's a vice chancellor. I mean, woman as a vice chancellor, even in Malaysia too, and woman as a dean, okay, of schools. Okay, here. So yeah, if we can move forward, why not? So don't be so inferior with your other colleagues. Yeah.
Right, thank you. There's a question that's come through, which I think might be good to link to that, really. Is, if you do encounter sexism within the workplace, how do you deal with it?
So I guess I have dealt with it, and you just have to be strong in what you say and not be afraid to actually answer that. So I had a classic example where I was chairing a meeting of a number of maybe 30 scientists, many of whom were male, and at the end of it they assumed that I was the person who would then book them a hotel room, and I told them very clearly that that wasn't the case, you know, and please, so it's just being strong. You deal with it just by very politely but very firmly putting them in their place.
Yeah.
Jessica, can you add to that?
No, I agree with what Sue said. I think depends on your character. Some people will be able to respond quickly. Sue is a very good example for that. I'm not a person who can respond that quickly. So when I know that I'm going to go into a meeting with majority of men being there, I'll basically prepare my mindset of what am I going to deal with in that particular situation. So I mentally prepare myself before going into the meeting and thinking of a strong sentence that I can say immediately without thinking. That will allow me to at least react quickly, because I'm not normally that quick in responding to such a situation. And I think that would be important, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Got some more questions come through, so I'm going to go to those if I may. So there's a lovely question here. What advice would you give to your younger self? Yeah, it seems to come in from Anonymous Dinosaur, that one. So thank you, Anonymous Dinosaur. Nurha, do you want to take that one? What advice would you give to your younger self?
To my younger self? Oh, that's very tricky questions. Yeah, I mean, as for now, so I encourage to be part of science. Yeah, because in science there is a lot of interesting thing that you can discover. Okay, and then from all the experience that you need to go through, that can be a part of lesson for them. Okay, and then I also encourage them to go for what they interested on. Yeah, so I will not forcing them to follow me. Yeah, that's all.
Nazlah, have you got any advice for your younger self?
Make decision quickly. But it's okay if you decide later. Or say it's not that time for you. Better late than never. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And Jessica?
I think talk to the people around you and get as many opinions as many as possible, I would say. I'm not a person who normally asks for suggestions, because I was thinking that I will be responsible for my own decision. But on the other hand, if you don't talk to the others, you don't know what opportunities actually are out there. So I think getting opinions and suggestions from the others is what I should have done better.
Right, and Sue, sorry.
So it's really interesting, actually, because I think we all feel the same. So I would say have conviction in what you do, and it's a similar thing. So I knew that I loved science, and actually that conviction has stuck with me. And so looking back now, I am so glad I made the decision to become a scientist. It's the best thing ever. So have conviction in that, and yeah.
Okay. Again, just going to the questions that have come in. So there's an interesting question here about the wage gap between men and women within science. Now, how do you perceive the wage gap between men and women, and has it improved since you first started in science? Susie, do you want to take that one first?
So actually, I guess I could do a real good comparison because I married a fellow PhD student, and so we started on exactly the same wages, and that was the great thing. So there is no wage gap, but I guess the difference comes along. So I did take time to be part-time, and therefore, you know, I potentially, my decision didn't rise up the ladder as fast as him, but that again was down to me, because I wanted to stay part-time when the children were younger. So it's not so much a wage gap, because they're not allowed to do that anymore, and I think it is getting smaller, and that's the great thing about transparency, and the fact that they have to show transparency in academia, in the industrial, you know, so in companies and in the health service. There is no wage gap per se, but it's how your career develops that may change that. So yeah, I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
Yeah, I want to add. Yeah, even in here in Malaysia, we don't have any wage gap between males and females. So all get same salary depending on your levels, on your grade, on your work. Yeah, on your position actually. So we don't have wage gap between males and females. Yeah.
Jessica, do you want to chip in on that one?
No, so I think it's a similar view as well. I don't think at the time when I started, I think male and female, there's no wage gap between the gender itself. There's differences between clinical scientists and basic scientists, but I think even that has gone now. So there's no wage gap as long as your level and your experience are the same. That it is actually similar. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you. There's a question here about quitting. Did you ever consider quitting? Were there tough times in your journey to where you are now? You'd like to take that one, Jessica? Do you want to take that one? There's some questions coming. Look, these are great questions.
No, interestingly, no. It was certainly a challenging career, I have to say, but I wouldn't say it was. There was a time that I think I would like to quit. I was actually thinking of how am I going to fight against it. So I think believing in yourself, and I think if you choose that as your career, you need to take the goods and bads of that particular career. There are, of course, challenging situations, but it doesn't mean that you cannot overcome it. As like what Sue have said earlier, I think teaming up with people and face the challenges together, you always have supporting colleagues in your surrounding and talk to people. I think that's the part.
Sue, have you ever thought about quitting?
Well, actually, I guess like Jessica, you know, you do at all times you think, is this what I want to do? So when I finished my PhD, I remember thinking, oh, now what do I want to do next? And I actually went and I was interviewed for another job and they offered me the job. And I thought, this is really boring. I really don't want to do this because science is so exciting. So you learn very quickly that, yeah, as Jessica says, so many challenges, but so much enjoyment, so much, you know, excitement still after all these years. So yeah, you can think about it, and that's good because you're questioning. But no, never completely giving up.
That's reassuring. Nazlah, have you? Sorry, Nurha, your microphone was on. Nurha, how about you? Have you ever thought about quitting?
Quitting, quitting of study, no. I mean, when quitting studies is not, because my passion, study, but quitting work sometimes. when at one place you feel like you cannot balance your work, and then you cannot balance your work with your life. Sometimes it might happen, and then you come across, oh, I want to quit. That might happen sometimes, but of course we need to face it. We need to overcome it, and then the feeling is normal actually. So it's okay to feel like quitting, but you actually will not quit anyway. Yeah. Okay.
Nazlah?
Yeah, I think for me, every year it occurs mostly in November, December, because at this month, actually, where the higher rank assess us, giving us the mark for our work. So I want to quit during this time because I didn't achieve it, because the key performance indicators not achieved, and then started to enthusiast again early in the year, because we love science. Keep fighting for it, yeah. And then drop again at the end of the year because of the key performance index.
And I know that during the last 2 years, there have been all sorts of challenges as well because of the global pandemic and your labs in various instances being closed down because you've had experiments that are running that you've not been able to attend to. So it must have been really, really tough. So I'm sure at times you have thought about quitting in those difficult times, but it's really reassuring to hear how you've overcome them. Great, thank you. So I've got a question here about working in a lab. So how can I work in a lab after a PhD?
Oh, do you want me to quick? Yeah, very quickly. So it depends because you can work in a lab before a PhD, but if you work in a lab after a PhD, you're either going into a science, so perhaps a company, a drug company, for example. You know, we've all heard about Pfizer, we've all heard about AstraZeneca recently. So you may go into those types of labs, and definitely a PhD will help. If you want to stay in academia and set up your own research lab or work in somebody else's research lab, that's also possible. You can actually go into a clinical lab and do something like the clinical physiology or something like that. Or you go into something like environmental sciences, completely different, and work in a lab situation. So there are loads of different lab opportunities available. Does anyone want to add anything to that? No.
No. Okay. So my next question then, I need to find it now. Hang on, bear with me just a second. Yes, there's a question here. Now, obviously, a lot of people, when they think of a doctor, think of a medical doctor, a doctor of medicine. And the question here is medicine worth it for the amount of time and effort put into it? So I guess it would make sense to
Nazlah.
On this one, wouldn't it?
It's good to be a medical doctor, but then because of the times goes by, I think all of us need to weigh between what's the best for us. So if you're really passionate to do to work as a medical doctor, just go for it and then see how much it will affect your life, your family, your activities, and then what do you want to achieve? Yes. Yeah, what you need, because you need to upgrade yourself. So think about it, because it's going to be different between being a medical doctor and a medical lecturer. It's different, but it's as a medical lecturer, still working as a medical doctor by producing students, medical students to be medical doctor.
Great, thank you. And Jessica, I believe you got something you want to add.
Yeah, so when I chose my biochemistry, when I finished my undergraduate biochemistry, I actually did think of going to a medical school, and I tried out for half a year and I quit it afterwards. And that's the time I actually really think of, I really quit something, And the main reason for that is because I realized that I really cannot do something that is remembering facts without understanding the mechanism behind it. I think that is a very clear definition or division between a medical doctor and a scientist. Scientist is understanding something, medical doctor is applying something that they can remember. So, and it's two very different mentality. I think you actually need to ask yourself, what type of person are you? If you're happy with that side, then go for the medical doctor route. I think it is perfectly fine. It's a very good career, obviously. But if you're not that type of person, then I think science is definitely a possibility.
Okay. Does anyone else want to add anything before I move on to our final question? Okay, we've had some wonderful questions coming through, and over the last kind of few minutes, I've been frantically looking at the questions and working out which ones to choose. And there's been so many, so thank you all so much for those questions. And apologies if we haven't got around to all of those questions this evening. But I thought this one was a good one to finish on for students either doing IGCSEs or doing IB or A-levels. And it's this, it's how do you ensure you remain organised and on top of your tasks? Who'd like to take that one, please? Go on, Sue. I can see you're desperate to take
No,
that.
Jessica's. Did you put your hand up?
No, I think Sue should go for it. Yes.
I think we're all the same. I think you've probably got some of the most organised people. So just set yourself sensible goals. Don't set yourself goals that are too difficult. And Jessica's got a really good. Go back and look at Jessica's slide that she did on the steps. If the steps are too big, make the steps smaller. And think about how you can actually achieve those. But be organised. And try and have a list that you tick off at the end of the day. So if you've got biology to do, if you've got chemistry to do those, and then make sure that you actually factor in time to do your exercise, do your hobby, do your gardening, do whatever you want to do. So I would say just lists, and really make the lists achievable and have pride when you tick them off.
Great, thank you, Sue. Nurha, would you like to add to that? How do you stay organised?
Organised. So I think during my undergraduate, I a bit organised, maybe because I have time. So during that times, I have compile everything in according to week, according to systems, and then I put on my rack in my rooms, and then sometimes my friends come to borrow all the notes, of mine. But when I come to later, I will come to my master and PhD. I'm a little disorganized, maybe due to time. Yeah, so it depends on you. Okay, as long as you are not as long as the thing not get you stressful, just enjoy what you like to do. Yeah.
Thank you, Nurha. And Nazlah, do you want to add something to that?
Yes, agree with we need be organized. Make a daily schedule, monthly schedule, and yearly schedules. That's all. Yeah.
Thank you, Nazlah. And Jessica, what is your top tip, please?
Use the modern technology. So I think, well, I mean, a lot of people are having smartphones these days, obviously, right? And then also there's online platform of this Google Calendar, whatever calendar that you can see. Everybody is only having 24 hours a day. So you can easily fill it up to the top that you don't realize until it is completely full. So I would say whatever that you want to do, put it there, set a reminder, and then you don't even need to remember it, right? So you set a reminder 30 minutes beforehand, something is going to remind you that is going to happen. And make use of the modern technology and free up your brain power to do something that is more meaningful.
Great, thank you very much. We are going to have to bring it to a conclusion there, I'm afraid, everybody. It's been really enjoyable being with you all this afternoon. I can just see 6 frames on my screen for our Google Meet, but I know there's many people out there on YouTube watching, which is fantastic. Thank you, FOBISIA Schools, for participating this afternoon and your brilliant questions. And thank you to Dr. Susan Deuchars, Sue, Dr. Nazlah Shafin, Dr. Nurha Ghani, and Dr. Jessica Kwok. It's been brilliant meeting you all.
Sorry, can I just say, if there are questions that have come in, if there's a way that we can actually answer those and get the questions out. So if anyone feels that we've not answered their questions, I know that Jamie's been doing a fantastic job of keeping on top of those. So we will try and answer some of them, because some of them are quite specific. So we're happy to do that as well, if that helps.
Thank you, Sue. I'm sure that would be really appreciated. I know there's some very specific questions to your particular field, so that would be really helpful. Thank you. Yeah. So thank you all for participating, and we hope that this will be the first of many such events in the future, and we'll keep you posted of those events as and when they happen. Thank you all, and have a lovely evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.